This is StoryBeat, Storytellers on Storytelling, an exploration into how master storytellers and artists develop and build brilliant stories and works of art that people everywhere love and admire. So join us as we discover how talented creators of all kinds find success in the worlds of imagination and entertainment. Here now is your host, Steve Cuden.
Thanks for joining us on StoryBeat. We're coming to you from the Steel City, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. If you like this podcast, please take a moment to give us a rating or review on whatever app or platform you're listening to. Your support helps us bring more great StoryBeat episodes to you. My guest today, the legendary multi-award-winning Sheila Jordan, is not only one of the world's premier jazz singers, but she's known for her popular vocal workshops as well. A superb scat singer, she can just as easily reach an emotional depth in a ballad. Whether singing well-known standards or original material, she makes it all sound like no one else. Though born in Detroit, Michigan, Sheila was raised in poverty in Pennsylvania's coal mining country. She began singing as a child and was working semi-professionally in Detroit clubs in her early teens. Her first great influence was no less than Charlie Parker. Of note, most of Sheila's influences have not been singers, but instrumentalists. Working chiefly with Black musicians, she met with disapproval from the white community, but persisted with her career. She was a member of the vocal trio Skeeter, Mitch and Jean, she was Jean, who sang versions of Parker's solos in a manner akin to that of the later Lambert, Hendricks and Ross. After moving to New York in the early 1950s, she married Charlie Parker's pianist, Duke Jordan, and studied with Lenny Tristano. It wasn't until the early 1960s that she made her first recordings, which included singing on The Outer View with George Russell, featuring a famous 10-minute version of You Are My Sunshine. In the mid-1960s, her work encompassed jazz liturgies sung in churches and extensive club work. By the late 1970s, Sheila's popularity increased, as did her appearances on record, including albums with pianist Steve Cuden, whose quartet she joined, and an album, Home, comprising a selection of Robert Creeley's poems set to music and arranged by Steve Swallow. In a 1983 duo set with bassist Harvey Swartz, Old Time Feeling comprises several of the standards Sheila regularly features in her live repertoire. And 1990's Lost and Found pays tribute to her bebop roots while displaying her unique musical trademarks, such as the frequent and unexpected sweeping changes of pitch, which still tend to confound uninitiated audiences. The New York Times said of Sheila, her ballad performances are simply beyond the emotional and expressive capabilities of most other vocalists. So for those reasons, and many more, I'm beyond honored and truly thrilled to welcome the incomparable Sheila Jordan to StoryBeat today. Sheila, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks. So nice to be here.
Well, it's a great privilege for me to have you, believe me. So you've obviously been performing for a few years now. Over the course of the last half of the 20th and part of the 21st century. Where did you start? I mean, you were a little girl when you realized you had some kind of vocal capabilities, correct?
Well, I used to sing in Pennsylvania when I was a kid because I loved to sing, because my upbringing was very, it was terrible. I had a terrible, I was raised in a family with a lot of alcoholism.
Mm-hmm.
So I was not a happy kid. And my mother had me when she was 17, so
Wow.
she really couldn't take care of me. So she and her sisters all moved to Detroit to work in the automobile factory because they didn't go beyond the 8th grade. So they needed places to work, and there weren't any gigs in Pennsylvania for them.
Did you sing as a release?
So what I did was I used to sing, and it used to make me feel better when I sang, because
Right.
I was, unhappy and hungry and cold, and or as I said, most of the money that my grandfather made went to drinking. He had the serious disease of alcoholism, which is a disease.
Right.
And so therefore we suffered. And my grandmother had many children. She had 10 kids, and
Holy mackerel.
my mother was one of them. And you know, three of them or four of them moved to Detroit to work in the factories, including, you know, a couple of the guys. But I think there was Aunt Esther, there was Earl, there was Harry, there was Bunky, there was Jackie, there was five or six, including me, that were there when I was growing up.
All right. So at what point did you, or did someone who recognized in you that you had this ability that should be in front of people? Was it you, or did somebody point it out to you?
No, it wasn't anybody. I just sang, but I think my family, deep down inside, you know, like my grandmother and, you know, my Aunt Esther, and who was like my sister, you know, all knew that I loved to sing. And I think it was one of the teachers at school who who found out that I could sing. I don't know, but anyway, they used to get me to do these parent PTA performances, and they'd get me to sing. But the thing is the kids would always make fun of me, and in more ways than one. I mean, the fact that we were so poor and from an alcoholic family, and you know, and then they'd make fun of me singing.
Why would they make fun of you singing? Were you singing something that was not
No, they were just jealous, you know.
jealous?
They'd see me coming out of the school, and they'd go, "Woo," you know, like just make fun of me. And I kept singing though, but eventually it got to me, and I just stopped singing.
Well,
But
so how did you pick it back up then if you stopped?
well, because when I moved to Detroit to live with my mother, I heard Charlie Parker.
Oh, so that was why you wound up in jazz. It was because of Charlie Parker, yes?
Reason. No, there wasn't any singers, although I admire Billy and Ella and Sarah. I mean, great singers, but no, my influence was Charlie Parker.
Well,
I heard Bird when I was about 14 years old. I was in high school. I had a nickel, and this was in Detroit. And I went across the street to get my hamburger for my lunch, and I would play the jukebox. And I happened to see this one day, I happened to see this special thing. It said Charlie Parker and his Revolvers, now's the time. And I thought, oh, I wonder what that is. That sounds interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I put my nickel in, and I heard four notes of Bird. And I said, oh my God, that's the music I'll dedicate my life to.
Just for off of four notes.
Got four notes, and I said, that's it. That's
Wow.
what I've been looking for.
Wow.
I didn't go out there trying to be, you know, trying to make a living at music. I mean, I wasn't even thinking that. I just loved singing. I had to sing. It saved my soul. So.
Well, that's powerful to say that it saved your soul. When was the first time? You were 14 or 13 when you started to perform in front of audiences? How did that happen?
Well, what happened was in Pennsylvania, when I was still in Pennsylvania before I moved at 14 to Detroit, when I was like, you know, like we're talking like 10 years old, before I decided not to sing anymore because the kids made fun of me. This was before I was on the radio. They had radio amateur hours. And I would, you know, my grandmother, she would put me on those amateur hours. I mean, they thought I could sing, you know.
Well, apparently, if they wouldn't put you up if they thought you'd embarrass yourself.
My grandmother was cool. And so what happened was there was an amateur show, and I came in second. And I remember I got a letter in the mail. Some fan guy found out where I lived, and he didn't find out where I lived, but he had the address, and he sent me a proposal of marriage. I was about like 8 years old, okay? And my grandmother sent the letter back and said, well, I don't know, maybe you better call her and, you know, resend this in about 15 years. That was funny, but I always sang because it made me feel better.
So,
I was,
so did you feel at home when you were on stage, even as a little girl?
oh yes.
So that was the place for you. You knew that's what you were going to do.
Yeah, yeah. The minute I opened my mouth to sing, I felt better after I sang.
Well, you have a specific tonal quality to your voice. It reminds me of Ella Fitzgerald. I mean, Ella's Ella, you're you, but you're in that pocket. And so I assume that you did listen to the other singers, yeah?
Oh, I mean, I have a story as far as Ella's concerned. You know, after I moved back to Detroit and I was in high school, I guess I was in high school, I heard Ella sing Lady Be Good.
Right.
It was on the radio. And but now I'm living with my mother. And I heard Ella Fitzgerald sing Lady Be Good. And I said, oh my God. So I scrubbed this woman's floors and made myself 20 cents and went down to the record store to buy Ella singing Lady Be Good, thinking I'll bring it home and I'll learn it.
Mm-hmm.
Good luck. It never happened.
What do you think of Mabel Mercer? I'm just curious.
I loved Mabel Mercer. I thought she was beautiful. She would sit in that chair and sing.
Mm-hmm. And like nobody's business, you know.
Yeah, she was a beautiful, soulful singer. A lot of heart.
So I can tell when I'm watching videos of you singing, because I can see videos on the internet of you singing, and I can tell that you are absolutely in love with what you do. Would you say that that's one of the keys to being a great performer, is you must love it?
Oh yeah, it's the greatest gift beside my daughter that I've been given in life.
Mm.
Music saved my life. It actually saved my life.
So tell us why. How did it actually save your life? I think it's fascinating.
Unfortunately, since alcoholism ran in my family,
Yeah.
when I was young in high school, we all drank, and that was. But then after high school, I didn't drink anymore, and I realized that, it wasn't for me, and I saw my family, and my mother died from the disease, and so I was very much turned against alcohol. And I started working in a club in Greenwich Village. I was working in an office also.
What year did you go from Detroit to New York?
I was in the early 50s.
In the early 50s.
Yeah, because I wanted to be near Charlie Parker's music.
And about how old were you at that time?
Oh, well, I was like 18, I think. 18, 19, yeah.
Okay, so
you could get in clubs in New York at 18 at that time.
Mm-hmm.
You could go to clubs, and that was great because you couldn't do that in Detroit. I used to forge my mother's birth certificate, but I looked so young, I never got in anyway. So I stand outside in the back and listen to Bird, But we had a club in Detroit for young people that Tommy Flanagan and Barry Harris and Kenny Burrell, we all went down there. And these two guys that I used to sing with, Skeeter and Leroy Mitchell, we'd go to this little club that was owned by a white couple from Canada, and all the kids went there because they didn't sell alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a great little place for us to try out our ideas,
All right, so you're in New York, and
you're in New York, yes.
And are you trying to make your way as a singer at that point?
No. I've never tried to make my way as a singer. I just did it because it was a need. It's like eating. It's like, it's part of being.
Something you had to do. You were compelled to do it.
Had to do, but not to become famous or any of that other stuff. No, that was not on my mind. I didn't feel that way at all. Actually, the reason I moved to New York because when I was about 8, I left home when I was about 17. I left my mother, I left there because she had lovers or marriages that were terrible. The men beat her up, and I saw all this, and I had to get out. I couldn't take it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I left home when I was right after I got out of high school, and I got a job typing because I took up typing at high school in Detroit at Commerce High School, it was called. It was right next door to Cass Tech. And I took a couple of classes at Castic also. But anyway, getting back to that, I left. I met Frank Foster in Detroit. He became my boyfriend,
Huh.
and we ended up living together. So we had a little room, furnished room on John R. And Frank and I, he was my first love. I was supposedly his first love.
Wow.
And when he went into the army, I didn't want to live in Detroit anymore. Well, we went through so much prejudice, racial prejudice. We were always being stopped on the street. I was taken down to the police station, and one cop even said to me, plainclothesman said to me, "See this gun in my pocket, in my holster?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "If I thought I was going to find my daughter, who's 9 years old, if I thought I was going to find her like I found you tonight with this," and he used the word "and," I don't like that word. I don't use it.
I understand. I don't like it either.
Derogatory word for the Afro population. I hate that word. But he said, if I thought I was going to find her like I found you tonight with this N, I'd take this gun and go home and blow her brains out.
Oh boy.
That was a cop. A cop.
Well, we're in the middle of dealing with all these issues at this moment as we're recording this.
Well, my story is so much part of it. I mean, I would really, and I came to New York thinking, oh, it was going to be cool here. And I had a beautiful loft where I had sessions.
When you say sessions, what do you mean sessions?
People blowing, coming up and bringing their horns and playing the piano and jam sessions.
Where you were jamming the whole time, yeah?
Yeah. But anyway, we'll get to that. But anyway, I remember just about this racial prejudice, thinking New York would be so much cooler, which in some ways it was. But I remember I was having a session at my loft, a jam session, and the cats and women were up there playing and singing and whatever. And I went out to eat with two friends who were Afro-Americans. Right. And we went out, and they were painters, they were artists. And we were coming back, and in the corner bar, there was a bar on the corner on the block that I lived on. 4 guys jumped us.
Oh.
And they took my friends. 3 of them took my friends and were beating them up and holding them. And this other guy threw me down, knocked my tooth out, was kicking me, and my nose was bleeding. And I said, I'm going to die over this racial prejudice. I'm going to die over it. But I didn't care. I just said, I know I'm right. And I looked up and I saw a guy coming across toward us, and I was in front of my building and laying on the ground, and this guy was beating me up, this white guy. And when I saw this cop a little up the street coming toward me, he had a gun and he had it out and he was pointing it at me. I thought he was pointing it at me. And I said, I'm going to die over this. This guy's going to shoot me. He's with them. He happened to be a plainclothesman. He got to me and the guy that was beating me up and said, you know this woman? And the guy said, no. He said, get off her. Get up against the wall. So he went up against the wall with the other 3 guys. And he came over to me and he said, are you okay? And he was white, by the way. He said, are you okay? And I said, no. I said, I lost my tooth. I don't know. I think I'm okay. I'm not sure. He said, well, where do you live? You live right here? And I said, yes. He said, you want to press charges? And he said, but before you answer, I want to tell you something. They know where you live. So think about it. I mean, I will do anything you want. Whatever you say, I'll do. And I said, well, I would love to press charges, but if you think that they might come back and harm me at a later date, then I won't press charges.
Well, that was that era is, deeply impressed on the American psyche, and it was not good. And
No,
unfortunately, we're still dealing with it. And it would be great if we could get past and just be people, period, just humans.
exactly.
Yeah. All
And
right. So
that's what I want to see happen.
well, and you and me both, we're on the same page. Absolutely. I want to get into your, how you've wound up doing everything that you've done over the years, all the singing and all the gigs you've done in records. So, all right. So now you have no formal schooling. You studied with Lenny Tristano, yes?
Yeah, but I don't have any formal schooling. No, my great aunt in Pennsylvania was a piano teacher, but she would beat you up your hands. She would take a ruler and hit your hands if you were on the wrong keys. And
Wow.
I remember I was taking piano lessons and I came home and my grandmother saw my hands. She said, "Your hands are all black and blue. What did you do? Did you fall? Did you hurt yourself?" I said, "No, Aunt Alma hit my hands because I was on the wrong keys." She said, "That's it. You're not going to her anymore."
All right. So
So,
but in New York, so you didn't go to school to be a singer. You're a
no,
natural.
no. I just sang from the need to sing.
But you're a natural. Not everybody can do what you've done. You have a certain gift that you've been given, and you were able to use it in a way that other people could appreciate.
I had to sing. It was part, as I said, it was part of my being.
Right. All right. So
I worked, after I married Duke Jordan, I had a baby, a little girl,
mhm.
and he left us because he was an addict.
Mm.
He couldn't take care of us, and he just had another woman. So even though we were married, so he left. I didn't put him to jail. I didn't do any of that stuff. I knew he was having a problem. But I raised my daughter by myself, and I got a job in an office, which I've been doing since I came to New York. I was trained in typing and, in office work.
Right.
But then I found a job singing in the village at a place called Page 3.
Right.
This club was on 7th Avenue, Page 3. So I got a job singing there 2 nights a week.
Huh.
I only made $6. By the time I paid the babysitter $4 and took a taxi home, I think I had $1 left. But I wasn't doing it for the money. I was doing it because I had to sing. And I could try out ideas. I could try out songs that I wanted to learn, and it was wonderful.
Did you feel like that was your training? That was your breeding ground? That's where you learned?
Absolutely.
So
And I worked with great piano players down there. One of them was Herbie Nichols.
wow.
He was a piano player and played for all, and it was a club that had comedian. A set would be a comedian and a tap dancer or a stripper, and me. I was called the New Note in Jazz. It was that kind of club, and it was in Greenwich Village. And oh my God, that's where I got my schooling, at that club.
You learned how to be in the business at that time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But before all of that happened, I met Charles Mingus and Max Roach, who I met as a kid in Detroit when he was with Bird.
Right.
And Max was very sweet, was always like a good friend to me. And he knew I was looking for a teacher. Now, this is before my daughter was born.
Mm-hmm.
And I was working in my office. I mean, I came to New York. I had to get a job in an office, support myself. So Max said, there's this great piano player who's a wonderful teacher. Maybe he'll take you. His name is Lenny Tristano.
Right.
So I called Lenny and had an appointment, and he said, I've never had a singer before, but I'll take you. Max recommended you, and
Wow.
Charles Mingus recommended you, so of course I'll take you, to help you. Your first lesson will be learning Charlie Parker's Now's the Time. I said, well, oh, I know it. He said, yeah, sing it. So I sang it. He said, oh, right, you do know it. He said, okay, your first lesson then is Lester Young, Prez. Lester leaps in. I said, oh, no, I don't know Lester Young. So that was my very first lesson. But what I got from Lenny was just like he gave me inspiration to go on, and I was okay, and to be original, to sing my story, not to try to imitate anybody else, or, and I already knew that, but, it was rewarding to hear it from somebody like Lenny. So,
Sure. So what you got more from him than anything is inspiration, not so
correct,
much technique or how to
correct.
do anything. Uh,
That's,
okay. So was there a point in your life, was it prior to New York or was it during this time where you thought to yourself, I really am pretty good at this? When did you feel really confident about what you did?
no, it had nothing to do with confidence. As I said,
It's just doing it.
I just had to do it. It was part of me, and it made me feel good.
Well, you
When I
clearly,
sang, I felt better after I sang.
well, okay, good. I mean, that's helpful. I think what I'm trying to figure out is, obviously you were getting positive feedback from other people listening to you. Nobody was booing you off the stage. They thought you were pretty good. And
No,
so
that's
you must have
correct.
had enough understanding of your own instrument to say, you know what, I am doing this. I have to do this. I'm compelled to do it, but I'm also not bad at it. I'm pretty decent at it. You had to have
I
thought
never thought that one way or another.
that's interesting to me. That's so
No,
interesting.
no. This was just the need to do this.
Just a need. But
And
if
people in the club after I would sing would come over and tell me, I felt your soul. I
Mhm.
felt I felt what you sang.
Did,
And not that you have a beautiful voice, you have a great voice, because I don't. I have a small voice. I mean, but they felt my feeling. They could feel that I had experienced.
oh,
Uh,
but you have a voice like butter. That's what you have.
really?
Yes, I think you have
Oh my
I think you
God.
have I would call
Oh,
your voice extremely beautiful.
thank you, Steve. I never thought that.
You never thought you had a beautiful voice?
Oh,
Oh,
God, no,
oh my
no.
goodness.
I
Well,
don't even think of it as,
you should listen to your recording sometime.
I never do. I never,
I'm
I
I
never
imagine.
listen to me. Never listen. I only listen when I record to which takes I want to use. Then I hear the final thing, the final production, and then I never listen again.
Do you all right, so I'm also curious, you were working among some of the greatest jazz musicians in the history of the world.
Oh,
You were working with, you knew Mingus. Did you know Charlie Parker as well? Did you work with him?
very well. I met Bird when I was about 14 years old in Detroit. And I was singing, as I said, with these two guys, Skeeter Spite and Leroy Mitchell. We were
Right.
doing all Bird compositions. We were beboppers.
And what did he think of it?
Well, what happened was, he didn't know. I mean, Bird wasn't from Detroit. He just would come in and do concerts. And he came to the Greystone Ballroom one time, and we were kids, and we could go to the Greystone Ballroom because they didn't sell alcohol. So it was a concert.
Right.
So there was this great saxophone player from Detroit, Billy Mitchell, and he knew about us, of course. Most people in Detroit knew about us
Right.
because it was unusual to see this little white girl with these two Afro uh, guys,
Hmm.
young Afro guys. And what is it? Wow, this is wild looking. But but then they hear us sing and they say, "Oh my God, they sing great together." So
Hmm.
anyway, long story short, Billy Mitchell, this older saxophone player, great player, must have gone over to Bird and said to Bird, "This is from the story I heard. You've got to hear these kids sing. They sing you." And Bird said, "Oh, I guess," he said, "Oh, really?" So he went back up. Bird took after the intermission. This was during intermission that Billy told Bird this.
Right.
So he went back up on stage, and then he played the song. And then after he played the song that was finished, he said, "I have a surprise for you. I have some singers in the house that I want to call up to sing." And we were all excited. We thought, "Who's that? Fantastic!" And then he said, "No, you three." Oh my God, we were in shock. But I think Skeeter, one of the guys that I sang is the greatest scat singer that I ever heard in my life.
Really.
We
Really.
never went into music. We just did it because we loved it and it made us feel good. We didn't do it for any other reason. And we sang for Bird. When I came to New York a few years later, I was grown up now. I mean, I wasn't 14 anymore.
Right.
And I went to Birdland with a friend of mine who was a friend of Charlie Parker's. And she said, I'm going to hear Charlie Parker at Birdland. You want to go? And she said, you can go because you only have to be 18. And I was. I said, oh man, are you kidding? Yeah. So we went, and at the intermission, she went backstage, said, I'm going to go back and say hello to Bird. You want to come with me? I said, yeah, of course. So I went backstage with her and stood on the side, and Bird hugged her and kissed her, and they had a few words, how you doing, so on and so forth.
Right.
He looked over and he saw me. He said, I know you. I said, oh my God, is he talking to me? I looked around, I thought maybe you were talking to somebody else. I said, do you mean me? He said, yeah, I know you. You're the kid from Detroit that sang with the two young guys. I said, yeah. He said, and he came over and he gave me a big hug. And so then anytime I would go to any place that Bird was playing, which was a lot, he'd do concerts a lot. And then, of course, I met Duke Jordan and married him. And Duke Jordan was Bird's piano player. So
Right.
I really got close with Bird. And
did you ever get to sing with him?
Oh, yes. And not as a gig, but he would have me come up and do a tune with him.
That's almost mind-boggling.
Yeah, well, it was for me, too.
I bet.
Not all the time. He didn't always have me come up and sing, but if he were doing, like, sometimes they had these parties where the women would get all dressed up and have food and make food and have it in a hall, and it would be like a Sunday afternoon, and a couple of times they hired Bird to play it.
Right.
Of course, by this time I was with Duke, so Bird would have me sing a song.
What if anything did you learn in this period? What did you learn anything from him or from Duke or from watching how they performed, or was there anything that you learned that you took away from it?
Not that I can remember, except be yourself. Be
yourself.
Yeah.
And I assume one of the things that you certainly had to have observed in Bird is how to improvise and how to really dig in on the jazz part of the world. I assume that.
Yeah. But I was improvising before I heard, not before I heard, but before I met Bird, because I was with these two guys, and they were a tremendous help. Skeeter, Spike, and Leland Mitchell, they were a great help. So we were improvisers, but we just did it for the love and, the feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not for anything else. My God, as I said, I'm shocked I'm where I am today, getting these awards, and I'm like this. Are you sure you got the right person?
Oh, guess what? They got the right person.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah.
So tell me about Mingus. I'm really curious about Mingus. He was legendary for so many different things, not only being an extraordinary player, but he had a persona to him that was thought of as a little bit on the rough side.
Yeah, he could be. He got angry with you, over anything. He could be. I remember I forgot. He got angry with me over something. I can't remember what it was. And I had already had my daughter, and as I said, he was very prominent with me studying with Lenny. But he used to come by the loft, and there was a song that he played that he wanted me to record, and he got mad for some reason. I can't remember why. And somebody else recorded it. I wish I could remember this.
He could get mad at the drop of a hat, yeah?
Yes. And I remember one time my daughter was just a tiny little kid, And I was coming home from picking her up because she was in nursery school, because I worked part-time in order to, keep us alive
So
as
you
far
could eat.
and have a place to stay.
Sure.
So I was walking up the street with her up 7th Avenue, coming from Greenwich House, which was the place, that the little school she went to during the day while I worked. And I was walking up, and I was just right past the Vanguard, and here's Mingus coming the other way.
Right.
And he sees me, and he looks down immediately, and then he sees Tracy. He says, "Hi, Tracy. You look beautiful. Much love," or something like that. And he walked on, never said a word to me. Because he was mad at me. I don't remember.
Was he a grudge holder?
I guess so. Well, it was with me.
Wow.
But I understand. Somebody told me at the end of his life, where was he living? He was living somewhere down. He went for help. He was in a wheelchair.
Yeah. I don't know that story.
Yeah, well, and at the end of his life, if you look it up, he had I forgot what the disease was he had. But anyway, he was in a wheelchair. And a friend of mine who was a singer and lived down there, somewhere in North Carolina or somewhere, I forgot where it was. But there was a home or a hospital there somewhere, and that Mingus was down there trying to get better. And she went to him and talked to him, and he said beautiful things about me.
Mm.
He said that, the singer that could really touch my heart and soul was Sheila Jordan.
Wow.
And she told me, and I said, "Oh my God, he must have got over his anger." She said, "No, he only had beautiful, great things to say."
Well, that's nice to know.
Yeah, it was nice to hear that.
That is nice to hear. All right, so I want to.
He wasn't mad anymore,
Well,
whatever he was mad at, I don't remember.
It's good to know that he could get rid of that, because that's not healthy to be that way.
Well, I think once he got whatever it was that he had, maybe you can look it up.
Well, at some point, but obviously not right this second.
Oh, no. I mean, at some point.
Exactly. So I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about the instrument that is you. You are essentially an instrument. Your voice is like a vocal instrument. Well, people think of their voices as instruments. Is there something that you do to train your instrument, or do you just sing?
I just sing.
You just sing. There's no special things that you do?
No. I don't do any exercises. I don't do any of that stuff.
That's amazing. So, all right. So when you're getting ready to do a gig somewhere, how do you choose music? What is your thoughts on what are you going to sing tonight? How do you figure that out?
I do songs that I love to sing, songs that I know that mean something to me that I can feel.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do something because I think, the audience is going to love this because it's on the hit parade, or it's, I don't do that. I only sing songs that mean something to me. And
so
I
you
get
don't.
a list, I put the list down, like maybe a swing tempo, maybe a medium tempo, maybe
Mm-hmm.
then ballads, and maybe a waltz.
Do you have a basket of songs that you go to? Do you have do you have 100 songs that you choose from, or is it?
Yeah, I have a lot of songs that I choose from, and I got lead sheets on all of them.
Mm-hmm. And you make on the day of performance, you make a choice, or do you do that before?
Well, I'm either the day before or usually not the day of the performance. No, that's too crazy. The only time I have to do that is if I'm on tour, and I get there and I have to sing in like in 5 hours or something.
Right.
Then I have to do that. But usually I like a little time to look over the list of the songs that I sing and which ones I want to do, so that I can go back if I say, oh, maybe I won't do this thing today.
Well, I assume the musicians, unless they're just on top of their game, they have to have a little bit of heads up on it. They're not just, you're not handing them the music and you're going on stage having never
Oh no,
rehearsed.
I always have a rehearsal.
No rehearsals at all.
No, I have rehearsed.
Oh, you have rehearsal. Sorry.
Always, absolutely, yes. And I have great lead sheets, and which is very important for singers. They don't know this, some of them. They just have a half a sheet with chord changes.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's not even on music paper, which is even worse. But my lead sheets have the music, notes, the chord changes, because I go over to make sure. With the piano player, I go over to make sure that the chord changes are good, great changes, and the lyrics. So I have the melody notes, the chord changes, and always the lyrics. So
Right.
anybody gets lost, like piano or bass, they'll know where I am because the lyrics are there.
And what do you prefer? Do you prefer to have what? Piano, bass, and drums? Do you prefer other instruments? What do you like?
I just prefer swingers.
What does that mean when you say swingers?
Cats that can swing.
Well, I'm saying, but you don't care what instruments they're playing just as long as they can swing. Is that what you mean?
Well, you mean if I'm singing, who I like to sing with?
Well, my guess is, I'm just guessing now, that it's
Yeah.
probably not so great for you to be singing with a 12-piece brass band. You probably want something that's more like a jazz orchestra, a jazz
I
band.
don't have the kind of voice that can cover a 12-piece band. Although I do have a couple of wonderful arrangements that were written by a great trumpet player. Well, this guy's so unique. He plays drums great, piano great, trumpet great, and he's a great arranger. And he's made some big band arrangements for me, which are great. But technically speaking, when I'm working, I like piano, bass, and drums, or
Mhm.
just bass and voice.
Just bass and voice.
Well, I started the bass and voice.
Wow, that's amazing, really.
I started the bass and voice in the early 50s with Steve Swallow,
Mm-hmm.
who was still playing acoustic bass. It has
Wow.
to be acoustic bass, not electric bass. And I am the pioneer of the bass and voice.
That's awesome. I did not know that.
Oh, I have about 8 records of bass and voice.
But I didn't know that you were the pioneer of it. That's amazing.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. No, nobody was doing that.
That's
That was
fascinating.
even before Peggy Lee did the Fever, man.
Well, that's
I just heard the bass, and Swallow was an incredible bass player. I actually, when I did my first recording for Blue Note that George Russell got me, I wanted to do bass and voice. And Alfred Lyndon, I don't think so.
Well,
and even George Russell said, Sheila, no, I don't think so.
have you done a lot of just piano and voice too?
Not a lot. You mean concerts?
Yeah, gigs of some kind.
Well, I love playing with Steve Cuden, and I've done piano and voice with him. We've done duo gigs, and the other piano player that I love doing piano and voice with is Alan Broadbent.
Huh.
So I have done, but my favorite way is bass and voice.
Bass and voice.
Yeah.
Do you have, well, when you're in performance, what's the biggest challenge that you usually face in performance? Do you have anything that's like always like, I've got to climb this hill in some kind? Is it a challenge?
Yeah.
Nah, it's all easy to you.
It's not even that. It's just like it's something that I have to do.
Just that it's the have to do. I'm trying to learn this. I'm not learning it very well, am I?
I'm hungry, so I have to eat. My soul needs food, so I have to sing.
You don't have a pre-show ritual then? You don't
No,
do any particular kind of vocalization or anything like that?
none at all.
None at all.
I haven't sung in 3 months now.
And do you feel like you feel like if you were going up on a stage tonight, you'd be okay?
Yeah.
You do realize, I hope you realize, that's extraordinary. Yes?
Is it? Well,
I would say
I don't have a big voice to begin with, so
I have known a lot of singers in my life, and very few of them can just roll out of bed and go sing and be at performance level. They usually have to work their way up to it.
really.
Yes,
That's not me.
most singers have to warm themselves up somehow.
Yeah, but they probably have these great, gorgeous voices. I don't.
I think you're being a little hard on yourself. I think
No,
you're
I'm just being honest. You know, I'm not. I don't know. I guess I feel more like an instrumentalist in the sense that
where do you get where do you think the inspiration of what you're singing tonight? If you're going to sing tonight, is there something that you do that gives you inspiration that you say, hey, tonight I feel like I'm going to sing X, Y, or Z way?
life, living,
Life. So you're feeling what's going through your world today.
and in the past too. It's all there.
It's all there.
Yeah.
So that's a certain amount of jazz, a certain amount of blues, a certain amount of all of that. It's what's in your soul.
Yeah, but it's jazz. I
It's
mean,
jazz.
it's jazz. Yeah, well, I can sing the blues. I
I'm
wrote my blues.
no doubt you can. Yeah, and certainly with your history and your background, you've got a lot of reason to feel that way. The blues comes usually for blues singers from their life. I mean, and you're saying the exact same thing. Yes.
Exactly.
Yes. So how often do you find a new piece to do? And what do you do when you want to find a new piece, or do you?
Well, no, I don't. I have a lot of books.
A lot of books.
Yeah, I have a lot of books, and I don't know. I have a couple of songs on the piano that I really want to work on,
Mm-hmm.
but I've been too lazy.
Too lazy. Well, if it's such a natural gift, I'd be too lazy too.
Yeah.
What
So
what kind of
I know so many songs, and then again I teach. So
right?
I help the kids learn tunes, and they bring tunes in that they want to learn. And sometimes I say, "Oh my God, that's a great tune. Maybe I'll do that tune also."
Well, I've been teaching for a few years myself here in Pittsburgh, and I learn as much from my students as they do from me.
That's right. So do I. Absolutely. Great, great, great thing, right?
It is, isn't it?
And
Because
you say Pittsburgh. Oh my God.
did you spend time here
Not in Pittsburgh, but it
in
wasn't.
Pennsylvania?
But it wasn't. Well, it's Pennsylvania,
Sure,
and that's
sure.
to me, the coal mines, and I lived in the coal mining area. You
Mm-hmm.
remember Charles Bronson?
Oh yes, yes. Did you
He,
know?
he was from Scooptown.
Did you know him?
Yes, I did because I was best friends with his younger sister, Betty.
Wow, wow. What was his younger sister's name? Betty.
Betty, yes.
Betty.
Uh-huh.
He became a rather big movie star.
Yes, he did, and he came from a large family.
Mm.
I mean, they were so poor. Supposedly, he had, when he was very young, had to wear his sister's dress to school one time
Oh,
because he didn't have any clothes.
really?
We're talking really poor,
Dirt poor. Well,
dirt poor, like we were.
that clearly has bubbled up through your entire career.
Yeah,
That feeling of what you came from.
yeah.
And I think that's true for most great artists, don't you? That you're formed as a young person, and that's what you carry with you through your career.
And you relieve yourself of the pain by singing about it or playing music or composing or whatever,
Exactly.
or painting or whatever in an art form.
So for you, I'm curious. This is a question I ask a lot of my guests. For you, what makes a good song good? What draws you to it? What makes it good?
For me,
Yes.
everybody's different. Okay,
Yes, sure.
all singers are different.
That's why I want to know from you.
Yeah, I'm just speaking from a singer's standpoint.
Right.
For me, the melody.
The melody.
Because if the lyrics suck, I can change them.
Right.
But if a melody is and the chord changes go nowhere, there's nothing I can do.
Right. So
a great. I'm turned on. I'll hear a melody and I say, "Oh my God, what a beautiful melody! Oh my God, I love that song." And then I'll get the song and maybe the lyrics are a little not so cool, or not what I feel, and then I just change them.
What do you have a favorite song? Is there a song that's like the song? No. How did you ever arrive at You Are My Sunshine? I mean, my goodness. How did that happen?
I met George Russell at the Page 3, the club that I was working at with Steve Swallow. And George came down on a Monday night because that was session night. And Steve Swallow played that night on Monday night sessions. And George Russell came down to hear Steve. No, it wasn't Steve. I'm sorry. It was Jack Riley,
Okay.
a piano player. And he came down to hear a student and he heard me sing.
Right.
And so during the intermission, he came over to me and he said, "Where do you come from to sing like that?" And I had no idea who he was. And I thought, well, is this guy kidding? I said to myself, I said, "I come from hell, man." He said, "Oh, can I visit you with hell? Can I visit hell with you one day?" And I said, "Yeah," thinking, "Oh God, who is this guy?" You know. And I gave him my telephone number and everything, and he called me. It wasn't too much longer. It wasn't too much later. He called me and he said, "Are you ready to visit hell?" And I said, "What do you mean? You want to go to Pennsylvania where I grew up?" He said, "Yeah." So I said, "Okay." So I arranged for my daughter to be taken care of because I didn't want to take her on the long trip. And she stayed with my best friend. And I went to Pennsylvania with George Russell. My grandmother was still alive, and we went to the house. And then she said, "Let's go up to the Bund." The Bund was a bar that you had to be a member of, and it was for coal miners.
Right.
You really had to be a member to get in there. Just not everybody could go in there. It wasn't like a bar where anybody can walk in. So my grandmother was a member, and we got in, and all the miners were out of work. There was no work for them, and they were struggling. But there was one miner sitting at the bar. So my grandmother went over and said hello to him and introduced us and bragged about us being big time and said I was big time, that I was famous and all that. And I said, "No, Mom, I'm not famous." And I said to the gentleman, the miner, but I said, George Russell's famous.
Right.
So he said, "Well, do you still sing You Are My Sunshine, Jeannie?" That was my nickname. Because as a kid, I got teased for the name Sheila, that my first name, my real name.
Yeah.
But my middle name was Jeanette, so I used to go by Jeannie, and then
Jeannie.
so nobody teased me.
Right.
So they knew me as Jeannie back there. So he said, "Well, do you still sing You Are My Sunshine, Jeannie?" I said, No, I don't sing that anymore. And he said, "Why not?" And George Russell looked at me and said, "Yeah, why not?" So there was an old out of tune, really out of tune, upright piano over in the corner. So George went over, sat down, started to play You Are My Sunshine. But it was like, out, beautifully out.
Right.
But my grandmother pushed him off the bench. She said, "That's not the way it goes." Because he was playing all this, weird stuff.
Right.
So she sat down and she started to play it. And I started to sing with her, You Are My Sunshine, for the miners. Well, we came back to New York. George and I drove back to New York, and it wasn't too long afterwards. I can't say now offhand whether it was a month or 2 weeks or a week or whatever, but it wasn't that long. And he called me up. He said, "Are you free?" I said, "Yeah, I don't have to pick up my daughter at nursery school until 4 or whatever it was." He said, "Can you come? Can you stop by? I have something I want you to hear." And I said, "Okay." So I went by and sat down, and he started playing this incredible piano solo. It was all over the place, and of course I loved it. I didn't know what it was. And then he stopped. He said, "Okay, sing." I said, "Sing what?" He said, "Sing You Are My Sunshine." I said, "Well, are you going to accompany me? Are you going to play it?" play the song with me? He said, no, sing it alone. I said, oh, no, I can't do that. He said, what do you mean you can't sing? Of course you can. You did it when you were a kid. Sing it. I said, okay. So I sang You Are My Sunshine. He recorded the outer view with Riverside Records, and he called me up and he said, I want you to come up. So I said, what for? He said, well, just come up. I'm recording. I'd like you to come up. So I went up to the studio and he said, okay, go in that booth. I said, why? He said, just go in the booth. And so I think it was Rudy Van Gelder might have been the engineer. And so I went in the booth and he said, okay. So he just hit a chord. He said, okay, sing. A chord so I could get my key, you know.
Yeah, sure.
And I said, sing what? He said, sing You Are My Sunshine.
Just like that.
Yeah. I said, well, are you going to play for me? He said, no. Just sing You Are My Sunshine, the way you sang it when you were a kid, about the coal miners and the out-of-work miners and the poverty and what you went through. Sing that. Put that in the song.
Mm.
And I said, okay. So I sang. So the first chorus was all me alone singing You Are My Sunshine.
Yes.
And then he brings in all of this incredible horn things that he wrote underneath horns to play. Oh, amazing. A lot of people have never heard it. It's too bad.
So I was going to say, for the listeners, you can find this online on YouTube, and you should check it out because it is really amazing to listen to. It's nothing like anything you've ever heard before. Certainly no interpretation of that particular rather simple folk tune. You know, I mean, it's a classic folk song, basically.
Yeah, and he wanted to change it and rename it and call it a drinking song because of the miners and their, you know, the drinking and the whole thing,
Right?
Happiness, but they wouldn't let him.
Did you record it on one take, or did it take a little while?
Oh no, it wasn't there. I think there was either one or two takes, and that was it.
That's amazing. And there was no arrangement for what you were doing vocally. You just
No. All I had to do was sing You Are My Sunshine.
Yes, but you sing it differently, or I shouldn't say differently. You sing it in a jazz way that is not like what the traditional song sings.
Because that's the way I sing.
That's what you do.
Plus what he was playing underneath me. I mean, then he had this incredible saxophone player from Cleveland, Paul Plummer, who does this amazing solo on it. You know, the saxophone solo?
I do. It's about 10 minutes long. The whole recording is about 10 minutes long.
I think it's 12.
Is it longer? 12.
Yeah, 10 or 12, something like that.
And it's a unique interpretation of that particular piece of music. Yeah. It's familiar. It's a popular, familiar song that is done in a way that takes it into the realm of art. Yeah. It feels like to me, it felt like I was listening to a Picasso painting.
Really? Oh,
yes.
What a compliment. Thank you so much.
It's really quite extraordinary.
George Russell was something else. And then he paid and had a demo made of me with, I forgot who. I'm not sure if Barry Galbraith was on the demo.
Yeah.
But he took this demo to Mercury and to Blue Note. Right. Blue Note had never recorded a singer before, and they wanted to record me here after they heard this demo.
Wow.
And Quincy Jones, I'd already signed to do the recording with Blue Note, and then Quincy Jones, who was Mercury at the time, the A&R man for Mercury, wanted me to record, but I had already recorded. And he sent me a beautiful letter, you know, saying, oh, it's too bad. I'm so sorry. I would love to have recorded you. And so anyway, that's what happened. So George said, and this is who we're using. He said, we're using guitar, bass, and drums. I said, oh, no, wow, guitar. I don't know. I don't sing with guitar. He said, well, you're going to sing with guitar now. I mean, you know, I did the demo, but he said, no, it's guitar. And I don't think at that time, which was 1962, that there had been a recording of a singer in jazz with a guitar trio. I think it was before Ella. I'm not sure. I could be wrong, but something tells me it was very unique and very original. And then of course Ella did something with who was the guitarist she recorded with?
You got me there. I don't know which
I
guitarist it is.
forgot. Yeah, no, she did something with the guitarist, but that was later. I think it was later, but you could look it up.
Absolutely.
This was done in 1962, and I don't know when Ella's was done, but it seems to me this was the very first one. In jazz was the one I did with Barry. And Barry Galbraith was so original and so beautiful, and a lot of people don't even know.
Was it a full album or was it just a song?
No. The whole album was Barry Galbraith, Steve Swallow, and Denzel Best.
And what's the name of the album?
Portrait of Sheila.
Portrait of Sheila. That's I have to check that out. That one I don't know, so I'm going to check that out.
Okay, and if you're having a problem, call me and let me know, and I'll see if I can find it CD and send it. It was done on a record, and then they even put it on CD.
So I'm just curious. We've been talking, believe it or not, for an hour, Sheila, and I'm curious. Is there anything that you listen to today that's new? What does anything turn you on today musically?
I love Bill Evans.
Say again, the who?
I love Bill Evans. Still.
Oh, Bill Evans.
Yeah, I don't think anybody plays a ballad like Bill Evans.
Mm-hmm.
I love him. Thank God I got to hear him many times in person. Actually, on my Blue Note album, on If You Could See Me Now, those are Bill Evans chord changes.
Really?
Because I had heard him play it on a recording and I loved it. And George Russell said, well, go and hear Bill. Bill was playing at the Embers, I think. And during the break, Bill came down, and of course he knew George because he'd recorded for George. And he introduced me, and Bill said, I said to Bill, in other words, I said, I love your chord changes on If You Could See Me Now, and I would love to have them. But maybe that's too much to ask. And he said, oh, no. He took a napkin from the bar and wrote down the chord changes on a paper napkin to If You Could See Me Now for me.
Wow.
And,
wow.
And when my house, this house where I am now, this property, my first house burned to the ground, that is the one thing that I felt the worst about. I lost everything, but to know that I lost Bill Evans' chord changes, paper napkin, oh my God. So, but they're on the record.
Well, as I said, we've been talking to Sheila Jordan, the legendary Sheila Jordan, for a little more than an hour. And I just want to tell you how grateful I am that you've been willing to sit down with me today.
Steve, come on. It's my joy.
Oh, it's my joy. This has just been fantastic.
Music alive, man.
That's exactly what you have to keep doing. And hopefully lots of people will now, who may never have heard some of the music that you're talking about, will now go and research it and listen to it.
Well, I hope so.
So I want to wish you well during all this craziness. We're in the middle of the pandemic in 2020, and I just wish you well, and that someday I hope to get to hear you live in person. That would just be a real pleasure.
Well, I was supposed to come and do the festival in Pittsburgh, and then I forgot something came up that I couldn't make it. I was very disappointed.
The Three Rivers Arts Festival?
I think so. I
yeah.
think the guy was, but I really would like to come back again.
Well, maybe next year.
Yeah, it'd be wonderful.
So I just wanted to thank you again and tell you how I'm so happy that you did the show, and again, I hope to see you in person.
I hope I see you in person too, Stephen. Thank you so much for all you do. Much love. Stay healthy, stay safe, and we'll meet again, hopefully.
And so we've come to the end of today's Story Beat. If you like this podcast, please take a moment to give us a rating or review on whatever app or platform you're listening to. Your support helps us bring more great Story Beat episodes to you. Until next time, I'm Steve Cuden, and may all your stories be unforgettable.